Hello, and welcome to Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. I'd like to talk a little bit in this particular episode about some new Biden regulations and how it affects what's going on at the U.S. consulates. Now, of course, before President Biden became president, number one, there were all kinds of bans from all different Muslim countries from our prior racist president, Trump, but those have been revoked, so those don't exist any longer. And then there was, of course, the fact that the COVID-19 had essentially shut down the consulates and the places around the world for people to come into the United States on things like K-1 Fiancée visas and all kinds of other types of immigrant visas. In fact, it's been almost at a standstill for a year now. And so what's happening is the wheels of progress and COVID-19 are now allowing the consulates to reopen and process. But I think a lot of people think that just because they have started to reopen, that 3 days from now everything's going to be approved and they're going to be able to either get their immigrant visa or they're going to be able to come into the United States on whichever visa it is. And they have to realize that's not the case. Number one, the consulates are still very understaffed, and that is to protect both the people at the consulate and the people at the consulate going for interviews and so forth. There obviously can't be crowds. They need to be socially distanced, and all of the necessary precautions still need to be taken. So still, even though they're starting to open up, the amount of people actually working on cases is still far below what it used to. Secondly, there is a huge backlog of people who have not been processed, and they need to be processed in line. So, for example, if you were waiting in line to get your immigrant visa and now the consulate has opened up, well, you have a consulate that's opened up with less than half the staff it normally has. You have one that has tons of backlog, so they have to process all the cases before they even get to yours. So you still are going to be waiting a considerable time to be able to come in to the United States, or your relative, or if you have a K-1 visa and you've been waiting a year, you're still going to be waiting. The nice part is that it still allows things now to at least go forward, which is a good step forward. I mean, you can imagine, for example, that everybody's waiting to get lunch in the cafeteria, and let's just say that the cafeteria is closed for an extra 2 or 3 hours. Well, everybody has accumulated outside the cafeteria, and they all have to go in and eat lunch. But now, since when they open up, since there's twice as many people, and let's say half the people in the cafeteria, it's going to take you longer to get lunch. You'll eventually get it, but it's going to take longer. Well, multiply that to a scale of about 10,000, and that's what you have at the consulates. So be patient. Things are going forward. The NVC for immigrant visas is documentarily qualifying people so that when all the consulates are ready, at least you can move forward and you can get what you need to. Now, on another note, the H-1Bs, if you're inside the U.S., it's almost time to file those H-1Bs. Unlike all the many prior years where it started in April 1st or on April 1st, this year it's starting about 3 weeks earlier, and it's practically going to end before the April 1st. So unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are getting ready for an April 1st filing, and when they're all ready to file, it'll already be closed. Although it's a little hard to tell this year with COVID and the employment situation, but generally speaking, all of the H-1Bs get used up very quickly, and when you file, you pretty much have to assume there's about a 25% chance you're going to be picked to have your case adjudicated. And if it is picked to be adjudicated, that doesn't mean you automatically are going to get the H-1B. It means they're going to rule on it, but at least they're going to rule on it. So that's a bit of an update on the Muslim ban and the consulates and the H-1B. And the only other thing of notable importance here is that if you recall how Trump basically forced people to stay in Mexico to get their asylum cases heard in the U.S., which was just ludicrous. I wouldn't have even imagined that one would think of doing that. But that has ended. But same type of waiting situation. They can't just let 30,000 people in tomorrow based upon that. So they've started at the facility at Matamoros, and they've allowed 250 people to come in, and they're allowing people to come in at a specified rate so that eventually people will be able to come in, get their asylum cases heard, and if approved, great. If not, then they'll have to find other options, and or they will be removed at that time, but at least they'll be able to apply once it comes. And then if you remember, the families of the children that were separated and how Trump had these children in cages like animals, there is a task force now that is trying to find and put all these families together, and there's ruling now that they can actually stay in the U.S., so that's all moving forward as well. Okay, so that's essentially the immigration updates for today. If you like the video, click like, subscribe, and more on the coming weeks. Thank you.